Hey, thanks, Tannen, for that great interview. They talked about wanting to dodge Boros Convoke. Well, we're about to watch a Boros Convoke match with our backup feature match here. We have Juan Perez Bermejo on Boros Convoke. What do you think about this list? What do you think about this deck just in the format right now, Mason?
I think Convoke's a good deck. A lot of people before OTJ came out were talking about how, hey, this Boros Convoke deck is really good, but goodness gracious, is the mana bad? If we just had Inspiring Vantage, things would be great. And then they got Inspiring Vantage, not much else from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, but they did get that Vantage. And a lot of players have come and brought this deck to our event. And we've been seeing a lot of the feature match here because it's been doing quite well. It's been a couple rounds since we last saw it, but when we were first in the booth yesterday, we kept popping up over and over and dominating because it is such a fast deck. It is so close to its Pioneer counterpart, and that is high praise for a standard deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it is up against something that has been a bit of a menace in standard for years now, Esper Midrange with Ryan Hayes. Now, what do you think about this here?
Yeah, so Esper Midrange is sort of the de facto mid-range deck of the format. We talked a little bit before Will's match, about how some players have gone from blue-black to Esper because it was just a bit more powerful. Then Mana got an upgrade, right? And then now, the only problem with the old Esper deck was, blue-black had better mana, so it was a real decision. Getting Concealed Courtyard from Outlaws of Thunder Junction was a big get. And then this deck still doesn't love the Convoke matchup, but it is a ton better than Will. We talked about Will a second ago saying, oh, I'm 0-3 versus Convoke. Well, this deck has, more lifelinkers, which come on the board early and has pest control on the sideboard and temporary lockdown. Those are huge cards. Are going to be big players, and we're going to talk about those later in the match for sure.
Yeah, well, our match is ready. Let's get down into it and see how this goes with Juan here on the left on Boros Convoke and Ryan on the right with Esper Midrange.
Yep. And Ryan, has like an okay-ish hand, a little heavy on 3-drops, but hey, that's the Esper way.
Right. And is he missing a third land right now?
Yeah, he is. He has, a Anchorage and a Darkslick Shores and a No More Lies and a Kill Spell and then a bunch of 3s. But those 3s are Rafine and Wedding Announcement, so they're pretty good.
Right. So we're going to see the Anchorage come down for him turn 1 here. And Juan's going to start things off with the Inspector, get the clue token. Ooh, that's going to be a Wedding Announcement for the draw from Ryan here.
What about another 3-drop? Is that good?
Someday.
Sure. Someday could be today for Ryan, as it looks like Juan's taking a little think.
Yeah. Looks like he's going to attack in with the Novice Inspector. And just pass?
Yeah, probably representing Resolute Reinforcement here. This is one of the things we saw from the Boros Convoke deck yesterday, which I so love about this deck, is that it gets to play these kind of flashy games and kind of can just hit you a little bit, and eventually overwhelm you. But it can also overwhelm you from the start, as Ryan, had the third land, always did. If you thought you didn't, he was lying.
Yeah, gets there, gets the Wedding Announcement down. Juan just going to crack the clue at the end there. You see an Epicure as the draw for turn.
Yeah, and Resolute Reinforcement was the thing that we were kind of hoping, if you're a Juan fan, to have happen. And getting that clue cracked, not the end of the world, but really not what you want to be doing as Boros Convoke. It's a nice upside play to not play to No More Lies, but not exactly what you want to be happening.
Yeah, I think I see an Evangelist in hand. Yeah, there it is. Evangelist, we got the Warden, we have the Knight, and we've got the Epicure.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to play this. I like this. Playing the Evangelist, just use all your mana. This way you can play around Ryan's No More Lies, etc. And you have a nice little clock that can start happening in the air with the bat at worst. Now, we know Ryan has cards like more Rafines coming that could invalidate this a bit, but...
Yep, and here is the Rafine, which we'll go ahead and attack in, get the Rafine trigger, and discard Rafine to Rafine. Classic.
Yeah, and that is one of the really strong things about these legendary creatures that loot a lot, right? We saw it with Rona earlier today with Jason. We see it here with Rafine. You can have a lot of them in your deck because they discard themselves to themselves, and you get upside from having a bunch of them when you play them on curve, which is not true of traditional legendary creatures. So,
yep, and we are going to see Ryan make a 4th land drop. As we pass back over to Juan, who's going to cast an Epicure, followed by the Warden. Now, of course, the Knight is online if he wants to go for it.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to get the Knight down now. You would love a Convoke for 5, but a Convoke for 4 gets you everything but the Knights, and it lets you potentially play another 1-drop. And if you find one of those 1-drops that makes something, then you get to scry with the Ward in the Inner Sky. And it looks like what we're doing is we're actually convoking for X's 3 and leaving up the Evangelist as a potential blocker.
Okay, and we are taking a look at the top cards here. Oh, is that a miss?
That's
is that
a whiff.
full? Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and that's gonna hurt if you're Juan there. It is going to mean you're getting nothing extra. And this deck, we talked about how it's able to play those kind of grindier games a little bit and then eventually kind of overwhelm you. Well, a big part of that is because of cards like Nine of Eos getting you to, even if smaller creatures nonetheless.
Yeah, and I mean, Ryan's really assembled a lot of what he wants to have assembled here, and is going to be able to do quite a bit. Looks like we're attacking him with the Rafine, getting the Rafine trigger. I think that was a cut down that he drew.
That is massive. As Warden of the Inner Sky is really the only creature that you want to be able to cut down. Everything else is kind of like, yeah, you'll do if you have to. The Evangelist is fine. But getting it now before it actually outgrows it is a great way to convert some of these dead spot removal cards. And that is one of the things that the Boros Convoke deck has a real strength of is your spot removal. It's like fine on certain creatures, but it's not really good. Good is not the word you would use to describe it. So, getting a chance here to convert cut down against either of these creatures is really massive for Ryan, especially after the whiff on the Knight Errant there.
Yeah, that was huge. And we're going to discard the Wedding Announcement to the Ravine trigger, and then we're going to go to Instep, get another human, one of the benefits of only attacking with Rafine, and flip the Wedding Announcement.
Yeah, we could have seen Ryan do something like cut down on the main phase, play a Wedding Announcement. If we did that, that meant no more lives was down, and Ryan's feeling so good after the whiff, he just wants to leave up his answers. And Ryan's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah,
I got a counterspell.
You're not going to need that bad token. Don't worry about it.
I do like the confidence, though. Just you got to play it. You're never winning, if that doesn't happen. And we now get some scry action available to us if we want it. Oh, it looks like we drew another Knight Errant off the top. So,
whoa.
Yeah, you see Ryan's face like, okay. All right, you whiffed from the last one. A good draw step. We'll call it even. Now, here's the question. Do we whiff again?
It would be one of the most unfortunate and amazing things I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we got at least one.
No, I think there's an Epicure.
Okay.
It did for a second look like maybe it was horrible, but we got there.
Yeah, interesting here. Juan can tap the 2 Knight Errants and the blood token in order to put a counter on the Warden. That would get it out of cut down range. That would force Ryan's hand to use it on that if he wants to. It looks like Ryan's going to actually kill the Evangelist in a turn, which I like. I talk about Warden a lot. That is a card that gets you some card advantage, can become a big threat. But Ryan's mostly got it checked, and the battle cry from the Evangelist probably is going to come up more relevantly, especially if he's not using it, right? Like the fact that he's not activating the Warden means that he feels like it's not a super important card to him.
And we're gonna get 2 draws off the Rafine here. A go for the throat. That's a pretty big one.
Yeah, it looks like we're choosing to discard some spells here as well to get damage in, which I really like.
Yep. So now that human is a 5/5, I believe.
Yep. Thanks to the Wedding Announcement flipped, everything's getting bigger. And this means if Juan wants to kill it, he's going to have to lose one of his knights.
Yeah. So just gonna get in some damage here. We are holding up go for the throat. I mean, Ryan is just so in the driver's seat right now.
Yeah. Juan's going to need something like Immodane's Retruder plus, you know, a little bit more on the next turn to win, but can steal it, but the window is closing very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Not really what he wants in hand there. Now we do have access to blood tokens. Could hope to rip something huge, but go for the throat in hand for Ryan. Also, we've got the Virtue in hand, both of which can be played. So we can suddenly get another blocker on board. It is just hard to imagine what line gets Juan out of this.
Yeah, I imagine it starts with like cracking the clue and finding an Immodane's and then hoping Ryan has nothing.
All right, so we pitched the land to the blood token. We're going to play the Epicure. Go ahead and make another blood. Ping Ryan a little bit.
Yeah. Juan could attack for like 10-ish this turn and probably chump block Ryan on the way back and maybe try to win a race like that because we have the 2 Knight Errants and the 2 Bats. And the Bats definitely get in for free if you want to do. Now you could have them block a Raffine, but also if you do that attack, Raffine gets in the air for free. And if you attack with everybody, then you're going to get Connive 4, which could put you at a point where the Raffine might be soloing you almost.
Sure. It looks like we might be tapping for the Warden. Trying to get a little scry, get a counter on it. Looks like choosing to put that card on bottom.
Yeah, I think we have to attack with at least one of the Knights here. I guess the Anchorage is checking the Bat, so you can't attack with the Bat with as much impunity. Now, that wouldn't mean Ryan can't cast any spells, but...
Sure. We are going to make a 2/2. And get rid of one of the Knights. So, I mean, at this point, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 attackers. 2 wands, 5 blockers.
Yeah, I think Ryan's in the spot now where he can go like attack with the Knight, has Vigilance, and then basically we can attack with everything because we have the Virtue. But if you want to be like careful, you can go like attack with just the Knight, just the big human token and the Raffine, and then play the Virtue if you connive and hit nothing that you're really excited about. You could attack him with those little 1/1s, but they can get eaten pretty easily. So that might not be what you're about. It's not the end of the world. They do get blocked though, so.
Yep, and we're gonna get 3 draws off of Raffine here. Looks like a couple lands and a cut down.
Yeah, and I think a Mastermind was the last of the cards. And it looks like Ryan is doing the discard all my spells, and I'm just going to play the Virtue and just try to make you like have to block this turn. Because even if Ryan doesn't kill this turn, making it so the Knight now has to like, get blocked, else we're going to be in something has to get blocked. Like it just whittles away at the point where Juan can't draw something like the Immodanes to steal the win.
Right, and it looks like we did keep the cut down in hand.
Yeah,
which, as you talked about earlier, being able to take care of something like a Warden before it gets too big to cut down can still be pretty valuable. Keep Juan from being able to scry for any new answers or get any new flying blockers.
Yeah, I like the keeping on the cut down here because this turn we're probably just going to play the Virtue, right? Untap our creatures and sort of low-key slam the door since we're reducing Juan's board size and essentially untapping our board. But then on the next turn, we're able to do something like activate our Anchorage, cut down one of your blockers, attack with everybody. And then if that doesn't produce lethal, it's going to put Juan in such a spot that he probably can't lethal you back, especially with all your creatures untapping. So I like this from Ryan here. It's not even in the world if he just wanted to play it now, but I do think the Virtue is just better. It essentially kills 2 creatures by untapping and growing the squad.
Yeah, very, very powerful spell here. And Juan at 5. It's hard to imagine a way out. But here's an epic year. 16 more of those and we get there.
True. Doppelgang. Do you think any kind of work players have ever been doppelganged for lethal? Like,
oh, that would feel so bad.
Yeah. And it looks like...
Yep, we are scrying for an answer here. Gotta crack the blood. I don't know what you're hoping for off the top, like a case? Well, it looks like it's a land. So that game 1 is going to go to Ryan Hayes on Esper Midrange.
Yep, and we saw this kind of how the board can get locked up, and we heard once again Will Kruger playing blue-black, sort of the sister deck to this one, say this matchup's really tough. Well, Ryan, had not a ton of pressure early game, got down some of his cards that really matter, and didn't even get down like the best ones. Like something like a Deep Cavern Bat would have helped pick apart Juan's hand and been a lifelinker that would have grown with Rafine. We just see slightly the differences that small things make, where we're able to clog the board up, with the wedding announcement, get that going, and sort of take over the game. So well played there from Ryan. In his sideboard, Temporary Lockdown and Pest Control are the 2 cards I imagine are going to get slammed in here. We see players bringing cards like Aclazotz in this matchup a fair bit, just because it's a big flying lifelinker. Sometimes you lose to it with the case, but also, hey, you've got some cards that are kind of awkward. Your Fairy Masterminds are not particularly good. Tishana's Tidebinder is also a card that's secretly pretty good in this matchup, just because they have things like Warden, Emodanes, those kind of things. You want to stop those abilities from triggering and kind of, run them out. So we might see Ryan do stuff like that.
Sure. And if we take a quick look back at Juan's list, you can see what he might be bringing in on the board here.
Yeah, so, Lithomantic Barrage is like for this matchup. That's a card that's just going to kill basically anything in Ryan's deck. Urbresk's Forge is not as good in this matchup as I think it is in some other matchups, but it is a card that kind of like gives you a recursive thing. So we might see it brought in. That's another reason, for Ryan to have in the Tishana's Tidebinders. We think that's going to happen. Invasion of Gobakon is a card that's much better against decks that have bigger wraths, but we might see that come in here still as a sort of small answer. And then Get Lost is a good way to stop a temporary lockdown, stop a wedding announcement, and maybe kill one of those creatures like Rafine or Bat. So I imagine we'll see some of those. Typically with a Convoke deck, you don't want to sideboard too much. So we might just see a little bit of these things come in, or maybe just, like all the Get Lost and the Barrage as an example, and just sort of hope to run him over.
Yeah, well, I think our game 2 is ready, so let's hop straight into it. We're going to have Juan on the play this time, which very big for the Convoke deck, of course. And looking at these hands, getting a real fuzzy look at Ryan's hand. I think I see a wedding announcement or 2. And we're going to have a Warden turn 1. We've got to Get Lost in hand for Juan as well.
Yeah, and you see Ryan has the lockdown, and it's left in at least some of his wedding announcements as just a way to produce multiple bodies and try to, eventually get his bodies big enough that they can apply pressure back.
And it looks like Juan also has a case of the Gateway Express and maybe also an Imidanes in hand. He's going to go ahead and swing in with the Warden. Oh, but a temporary lockdown in Ryan's hand.
Yeah, I have to imagine, last game we saw the clue get popped. I have to imagine this is the Resolute Reinforcement here.
It is indeed. Here comes the reinforcement. Here comes the token it creates. And suddenly, Juan's got a little bit of a board.
Yeah. And notably, can convoke something out like a Knight Errant of Eos here, which would be the big play. Ryan has a bunch of ways to clean this stuff up, but if we get the Knight down, yeah, our creature still got 2 for 1 or whatever, but we got this big body down that hopefully at least got us, one more card.
Right. Now we do know Ryan has the Go for the Throat in hand, as well as the lockdown, but even just getting to, find some creatures off the top there, hopefully not whiff, could be huge, but we will see. Let's see what Juan chooses to go for here.
Yeah, maybe we can get a hand view next time Juan starts taking a look. It looks like we're probably going to get a little scry action going on, which makes sense too. Ardenvale's Fealty could be played from the hand. Surprise 2/2 would be pretty devastating in these attacks.
Yeah, definitely something Juan has to stay vigilant about. But it looks like it might be swinging.
Yeah, that's the nonverbal to me of someone who's attacking. And yeah, I mean, it'd be really weird if Ryan made a 9 in response to scrying. So it looks like he is going to do it and block the Warden.
Yeah. So Ryan just takes a couple damage from the reinforcements, gets rid of the Warden. And we've got a case to kill the Knight.
Yeah, and the case still does get solved because we attacked with 3 creatures. They don't need to live.
Right, so that's very nice for Juan.
Yeah, and also possible Juan could even have more plays in hand, but doesn't want him to play into the lockdown, wasn't play into a pest control.
Sure. Now, the case is a 2-mana enchantment, so it will get eaten up by the lockdown here as well.
Yep. One thing to note here, too, is if Juan has some way to answer that temporary lockdown, the case will come back and it will be like a little bit of a kill spell. So you might have to use a kill spell to get rid of that, but then it gets a kill spell out of it, which currently doesn't matter a lot, but if the game goes on for a while, could matter a ton.
Sure. And, we do have Get Losts for Juan, which I think he even has one in hand.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's thinking about, do I want to fire it off now while Ryan's tapped out? Or do I want to, maybe play to my board? Could also hold it up and have the pop clue end of turn that we saw.
Right. It's just going to pass. I like this a lot. Keeps it up, so if he needs to, he can get another one of those case triggers while there is a creature on board. It looks like it's going to be a wedding announcement for Ryan.
Well, legally a creature will be made. So.
Yeah, we're going to go to the end step. I think Juan is deciding if he needs to get lost this wedding announcement.
Yeah, that is believable. That thing is just going to create enough tokens and an incidental advantage that you just want to answer it now, especially if Ryan just has a handful of answers and he's like, yeah, my plan is to have, some 1/1s get in the way, maybe hopefully make some trades. But it's close. Personally, I think I have a hard time passing up just like kill the token, hopefully flip your case on the next turn. And yeah, I think Juan here is asking like, hey, if I do this in main phase 2, he doesn't get the wedding announcement. And yep. So sometimes this is a bit awkward where in real life players will be like, go to my end of turn, trigger my announcement, which is just, just some shorthand that happens. But technically Juan could respond there. So.
Right, but it looks like we are going to get there. And looks like he will go ahead and get lost the lockdown, which we're going to go ahead and get the case back. We're going to have the trigger from the reinforcements. We're going to have the trigger from the case. And we're going to just blow up this human token.
And now we're going to see Juan untap. And we know Ryan has a cut down that's going to stop the case from flipping, but.
Well, if I was right about the Imidane's Recruiter at the start here, we could still get there, but it looks like we are cracking the clue.
You're right. The Imadanes definitely would allow for it, but it might also be a situation where Juan's just valuing building up his board a bit more and hoping to Imadanes for exact lethal.
Sure.
Imadanes for 8 here, solid. Imadanes for like 14 when your opponent's not expecting it, amazing.
Right, we go to combat. One of our creatures does get cut down, so we're not going to be solving the case this turn. But also, 5 mana means that the trained troop side of Imadanes is also online.
Yeah, and Ryan also just picked up his second temporary lockdown, so he's drawn both of them.
Yeah, that is huge. Now, of course, Ryan has 2 map tokens at this point, so we don't want to lose those to the lockdown.
True. Ryan also has the Wandering Emperor, which I think here puts him in a nice spot to just basically be like, hey, if Juan attacks me for a ton, I'll just, Emperor the biggest one, gain some life, jump block, and then, do my temporary lockdown and call it a day. But if he just tries to jump attack in and trade before my thing flips, because in Juan's perspective, trading 1/1s here is good because next turn Ryan has 2/2s. And then Ryan can come in and make a 2/2 and sort of wipe the board, or grow that 1/1 to a 2/2 with the +1 of the Emperor. So a lot of different plays available for Ryan here to punish Juan.
Yeah, very tricky spot for Juan for sure.
And this is one of the things that sometimes keeps players off this Convoke deck. We saw Newton yesterday, be X-1, and I think continuing that record today so far playing this deck. But sometimes, you have hands like this that you draw 1 too many lands, your opponent has a sideboard card for you on curve, and you get these really tough spots. And we see, our judge there reminding Juan he needs to make a play in a timely way. And you just get in these positions where it's really hard to overpower just strong rate cards like the Wandering Emperor.
Yep, and the Emperor is going to come down. Looks like we're making a Samurai, and we're just going to block both these creatures. Get rid of them.
Yep. And that play makes sense for Ryan, even though he does have the temporary lockdown. Just Juan's going to have to play the board more. You might as well just have him play into it. And there is that train of the troops you were talking about.
Yep, so we're going to get 2 Knight tokens. Now, if Ryan wants, he can, wipe the board of all these tokens, but
Again, I'm going to be interested to see how he wants to play this. He picked up a cut down for turn, so he has a lot of plays available. He could just attack with his Samurai and offer the trade, which, Juan never takes. And then, afterwards, we temporarily lock down, maybe make another Samurai. Yeah, and that looks like to be what Ryan's saying. It's like, hey, I'm attacking for 2. And unfortunately, Juan, I said never takes a trade. Maybe had to take the trade because now Ryan's going to have 3/3 Samurais thanks to the wedding announcement at the end of turn here. So he doesn't even need to develop the lockdown if he doesn't want to.
Well, don't worry too much about too many 3/3 Samurais. But of course, we can still make another one, which looks like is going to happen. As the lockdown comes down, gets rid of everybody's tokens. And we'll make a new Samurai. We'll flip the wedding announcement. This is a strong board for Ryan.
Yeah. Ryan is in a good position. If Juan draws hotter than the sun, he can come back from this. If we're able to get a couple creatures in play, get a Knight Errant, get some more creatures, and then, maybe some like double Imadanes or Evangelists into an Imadanes and attack out of nowhere, that could be how we get into this.
Here's an Epicure to start things off. Get a little blood token, do a little damage. What's not to love?
Yeah. If we have something like a Gleeful Demolition for this blood, that could be the... Okay.
Gleeful on the blood. Ryan looks like a cut down and a go for the throat in hand. No way to really stop this from happening.
Yeah.
That's going to be 3 little goblins.
And does Juan have the Knight Errant? He's got something in his hand. He's thinking about, obviously he can cast everything in his deck. His deck is all 1/2 mana cards and convoke creatures. But he's definitely thinking about playing something. If it's an answer to the temporary lockdown or the winning announcement, that could be also pretty big. But
he's going to play Imadanes.
Yeah. And
Imadanes pass? Is that what we just saw?
Yeah, it looks like he's playing Emanates, but not attacking. It is somewhat understandable because some of the creatures are going to die, and he just wants to get the knight on the board. It does make me wonder what the last card in his hand is, if that had to be it. Maybe it was something like a Get Lost. I am a little unclear.
Hard to know.
Yeah, he definitely non-verbal. It's kind of like, I'm going to... Okay, so
okay,
maybe
there is an attack. There is an attack. Okay.
Yeah, it might be a situation where he was saying attack all. But this is still really awkward because Ryan can go something like 2/2 on like one of the creatures, night blocks the other one, cut down one of the other things. The cut down's not very great in this spot. I can't hit the Immodanes because the Immodanes is a 3/3 due to its trigger. Hopefully our judge will catch that.
Well, it's +1/+0, so it's a 3/2, right?
Oh, it's a 3. Excuse me, my bad. It's a 3/2. Excuse me. Yes.
So I think our judge is going to let that one slide.
It's true.
But we do get to cut down the Immodanes. We get to favorably block one of the goblins. And then trade with the other one. And then Ryan just ends up taking 4 damage. And that's it.
Yeah, I think that's, how the dust settled. And we're seeing too why, last time I talked about Ryan doesn't even need to temporary lockdown before, right? Like could have built up the board because Juan can do stuff like this where he just put a huge amount of board pressure on. Now, Ryan survived it and is in a fine spot, but definitely can matter.
Oh, this is huge. Getting another samurai and then playing the virtue. These are now 4/4 vigilant creatures. But a Get Lost and an Epicure in hand for Juan.
Yeah, the Get Lost is nice. You can use it to, stop either of these enchantments or maybe even just answer the creature. But you're so far behind, and any one of these things are just going to kill you in a couple turns. So you need to have some good draw steps off the top.
Yeah, very, very tough position.
Yeah. And every little decision matters a lot here for the Boros Convoke deck. But, once again, we talked about this before. When these sort of decks that are just are full of strong cards on rate, like these kind of mid-rangey decks get going, it's hard for your like pieces to come together once you're low on resources, right? Like these high synergy decks need lots of combinations. We saw last turn a very strong combination from Juan, but Ryan was kind of safe enough that it wasn't the end of the world, right? And so now when you're like picking apart one piece, Ryan is like, yeah, it's not great for me, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, very, very tough spot here. And, these samurai are just going to continue to grow like crazy, as it seems like Juan is going to go ahead and Get Lost one of them.
Yeah, and now Ryan has some maps he can use to pop. I think Ryan also drew an Anchorage, so we might see him activate the Anchorage so that it gets untapped into Virtue and gets a little bit bigger, and you might even pop some maps on it.
Yeah, well, we will see the Anchorage activation. We're going to go to end step, untap it. So now we've got it live as a defender as well.
Yep, great play there from Ryan. Not missing any points. It also can attack for a lot more now. So those little things make it so hard for Juan to catch up in this spot.
And I believe Ryan still has a Go for the Throat in hand that we know about.
Yeah, it has to go for the throat and the activation of the Anchorage up here.
Looks like Juan's just going to pass. And at this point, Ryan can just start swinging out.
Yep.
Forcing some unfavorable blocks. We're going to go up to 3 map tokens off of the Anchorage trigger.
And it looks like there's a no block going on here.
It's going to be 9 damage.
9 makes the Restless Anchorage lethal on the next turn on its own. Kind of an awkward spot.
Very awkward spot. Very awkward spot.
If Juan has Gleeful Demolition in hand and draws Imodane's Recruiter, can he win through the Go for the Throat?
So there would be 2 blockers, effectively 3 blockers. Oh, not a Gleeful, but 2/3 of one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is your best bet of winning. You can attack here. Like you were saying, there's 13 total, but we have 2 blockers, and so that's going to remove 5 of the 13, which is 9. I'm sorry, which is 8. Which is notably 1 more than Ryan's 9, and that doesn't even count the Go for the Throat that we know about that 1 does not.
Right. And Ryan does have the mana to activate the Anchorage, and oh, that was a Case. But Case is not going to cut it. I think he drew another Case.
Yeah, it's not going to be good enough because the Anchorage. And if that was Knight Errant, which is the only other playable white card, that's not going to be good enough. You could maybe find a Sanguine Evangelist to chump block for a turn. But you need to...
Oh, he might be trying to bait out a block with the...
No,
oh, wait. No, this is a Knight Errant.
It is a Knight Errant, yeah.
Is there any creature you can hit?
It's Sanguine Evangelist or Bust.
Sure.
Yeah. You tap 4 from the code, you get all 6 no matter what. A weird card.
Oh, and that's going to be GG's. Congratulations to Ryan Hayes. Now 9-3 at the regional championship, which I think if it's not locked him for top 64, he's got to be very close, right?
Yeah, it's going to be very close. We think 31 points is the spot where you're basically in, which means 30 points. We think about 1/3 of them are going to make it. We don't know the exact math. We won't know until it's done. The size of these events, the draws, all those things matter a ton. But Ryan is on the doorstep of getting back to the Pro Tour. So congratulations to him, and well played by both players.
Yeah, very expertly played. You got to play to your outs in that situation. And unfortunately for Juan, just did not draw those outs. Now, I know that we do have another giveaway from our sponsors at Heavy Play, which you can enter by just typing Heavy Play, all one word, in the chat. This is going to earn you a $5 in-store credit at heavyplay.com, where you can buy all of their great products, from their ETB play mats, the curved sleeves, the RNG Dice Box Max, which all magnetizes together. It's really great. And you can get 10% off of your order using code Dallas2024. So make sure to type Heavy Play in the chat to enter this giveaway. Now, this has been some really great Magic so far. We're going to have some more after a short break. We'll see you in a little bit.